All right, everyone, welcome back. We're going to go ahead and wrap up this section here, and we're going to talk about importing resources into a theme, or also including widgets using some of the tag libs. So we'll look at some of that as well. All right. Okay, so there are actually a couple of ways of adding resources into a theme in 7.1. So what do I mean by adding resources? The idea here would be if you're developing a theme and you have a test case in mind, perhaps some mock-ups that you're trying to implement as the front-end developer, a lot of times you already have styles for your pages, you have content looking a certain way, you have certain layouts, and so we can actually include some of those resources in the theme in 7.1. So the first way to do it, and this is the one we're going to primarily talk about, is through what's called the resources importer. Okay, the resources importer has been a feature that's been around for a while. In 7.1, it is deprecated. We're going to look at it here just to show you what is available. So it still works. You can still use it in 7.1. But what we'll be replacing this in the future is going to be called the site initializer. Okay, we're not going to talk about that too much here because it is still in development. But essentially, site initializer allows us to deploy some fragments with our themes and have some existing or pre-existing pages or content that we can use in a site template. Okay, it's going to be a similar concept. The implementation is going to be a little bit different. Okay, and we will have some more information on the site initializer at a later date. Okay, as of right now, what we can do with the resources importer is we can include a number of resources in our actual theme. Okay, and we can sort of map together how those resources need to be displayed on a page using what's called the sitemap.json, as you can see here. Okay. Now the sitemap.json allows developers to essentially create a JSON structure for the actual sitemap that you have in mind. Okay, so this would include pages, layout, what widgets need to be on the page, what content is going to be on display. Okay. Now, in terms of what content will display and how it's going to be displayed, that is in a large part, in a site sense, determined through the sitemap.json, but you actually include those resources in the theme as well. So for example, for web content, that's an easy one. If we want to have structured content or templates or the actual content itself, that it can include the HTML, we can include those resources in our actual theme. Okay. Now, you may be wondering if you've worked with the content management system before, you know that we have some metadata that we can add to keep our content organized. So what if we want to do that in here? Well, we can. We also have the ability to use an assets.json, and this allows us to determine what metadata is going to be on display with our content, okay? Or maybe not on display, but included with our content. So what tags, what categories, different things along those lines. So that will be done in the web INF folder, okay? And in the web INF folder, there can be a resources importer folder here. And in that folder, all of the resources will be in folders that reflect the API. So for example, if I want to have documents, so that could be maybe images for my content or something along those lines, I can have a document library folder. And in there, I can have documents, and then I can have the actual folders that I want to be deployed in my new site. Okay, so if I had a folder called front page images or Hello Kitty images because you're strange, you can go ahead and create those folders. I'm just kidding if anybody likes Hello Kitty, but you can create those folders in the documents folder, and those will actually show up in Liferay. So those actual folders will show up with whatever images or content that you've included in there, okay? For web content, for example, which is a very popular asset, we'll actually talk a little bit more about that later, we can have a journal folder, because in the API, web content is referred to as journals, okay, or journal articles, rather. And in the journal folder, we can have articles, which is the actual content. We can have structures, and we can have templates. So those are separate folders where we can add our free marker files for the templates, we can add the JSON files for the structure, and then the actual content, the articles, are actually done in XML. And the reason for that is because the XML can allow us to represent the JSON structure and then add the HTML within there. Okay. All right, and once all of that is included, the sitemap.json is written. Once you deploy your theme, it will by default create a new site template. Okay. Now that's not the only thing you can do. You can designate a specific site for the resources to go to, and if you do that, it will not create a site template. It will instead just simply create a new site or add the resources to an existing site. Okay. Now we don't have an example for that for the Fjord theme. The Fjord theme is not using the resources importer, but if you guys look at, let's say Liferay's repo, you can actually take a look at some of the other existing themes, the Porygon theme, for example, different things like that. And you can look at some examples of the resources importer. Okay, there's also a lot of documentation on that as well. So feel free to take a look at that if you want to use the resources importer. And like I mentioned, for the site initializer, which will be the new way of performing those kinds of actions, we will have more information on that in an upcoming set of videos. So that's how you can add some resources. Those are a couple of options that you have there. All right. Now, what if I don't necessarily want to add a full site template or anything like that, but I do want to take advantage of embedding certain content or widgets or even assets in my theme? So for example, what if Livingston had a requirement where they wanted to include the language widget in the footer so that it makes it easier for their global audience to choose what language works best for them. Okay? That can be done using one of 3 of these tag libs that are available to us in our free marker files. Okay, so we're going to just talk very quickly about these different tag libs. Okay, there's the Liferay portlet runtime, and this is going to be for widgets in general, essentially. There's going to be the Liferay journal article, and then Liferay UI asset display. Okay, so obviously the second one is going to be for web content. I mentioned that in the API, journal article is referring to web content. And the Liferay UI asset display will be for general assets, so blogs or message board posts or wikis or polls or different things like that. Okay, so for the Liferay portlet runtime, you can actually use 2 parameters for this. Okay, there's the portlet provider action and the portlet provider class name. Okay, so this is basically the class name or ID of the widget that you have in mind. And then the action will be the state of the widget. So is it in view? Is it in edit? Different things like that. So typically view is what would be used for that particular tag lib. Okay. Now for the Liferay journal article, this can take a few parameters as well. Okay, we have the article ID. So you can find the ID when content is created on the platform. And we'll actually see some examples of this a little bit later on. Okay. There's the template key. The template key will be for the actual template. So if you have a template in mind for the content in terms of how it's going to display, okay, again, this will be a free marker template, we can go ahead and use that ID. And then there's also the group ID, and group in Liferay's API is referring to a site. So that would be the site ID. So we're essentially identifying what the article is, what template it's using, and where it's being displayed from, or where are we accessing that content article. Okay, and then there is the Liferay UI asset display. Okay, the Liferay UI asset display takes 3 parameters. You have the class name, you have the class PK, and you have the template. Okay, the class name is going to be the class name of the specific asset. Okay, the class PK will be the type of asset essentially. Okay, and then the template is going to be again how that particular asset is being displayed. Okay, so an example of this would be something like full content. All right. So we do have some more documentation on this as well. You can go ahead and take a look at looking at some of the more details for this. And again, we'll look at some examples of using these particular tag libs as we move forward with our templates. All right, so in order to include resources or widgets, there are a few options. Okay, we mentioned the resources importer here that allows us to not only include a number of assets, metadata, and a site structure and make a site template out of that, but we will also be looking forward to talking about the site initializer a little bit later on. And then if I want to be more specific about how I include widgets into my theme, I can use the 3 tag libs that we just discussed within our free marker files to actually include those. So they will be rendered on every page in the site. Okay, now just a quick note for using those tag libs, keep in mind that if I am including tag libs on every site page, it could introduce some overhead. Okay, so you can use those, they can be very helpful, but if you're considering the theme, use them wisely. So a use case like the language widget on each page may not be too bad. The search widget perhaps, the navigation widget you could do as well. But if you are adding multiple widgets to every single page on the site, obviously that can add some overhead. So keep that in mind as well. Okay. All right. Well, thanks for sticking around for theme development. So that is pretty much everything you need to know to build your theme. Okay. What we're going to continue on here to do is we'll look at one of the other modules that we have in mind. We've mentioned it already in one of the previous videos, but we'll look at layout templates, and then we'll continue on to looking at some more free marker template options on the platform. Okay. So stick around for the next chapter, and we'll continue on with our discussion of modules. Thanks, guys.